Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek got a super fun and exciting video for you guys today because recently I've been getting a lot of questions about the Super Smash Bros. Decompilation project, and that is because it is in the home stretch of hitting 100% status, so we're going to talk about what that means today. But the first question I get all the time is, Video Game Esoterica, when is the decompilation going to be done? And I can absolutely 100% guarantee you that I have absolutely no idea. When it is done is when it is done. It could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be 6 months from now. The second question is, what would this mean for Super Smash Bros. Moving forward? That one I can definitely provide a lot more insight into. But honestly, this is the game that launched a franchise that is still going strong to this day, with a new version probably coming out on Switch too soon. So we're definitely going to be talking about it because this is big decomp energy through and through. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But obviously N64 decomps, recomps, and PC ports are all the rage in 2026, and of course 2025 as well, but that year is gone past, and this, at least in part, is why retro gaming is making a comeback. We're not just talking about new games and franchises, we're not just talking about emulation improvements or FPGA cores, we're talking about full decompilations to the source code of games that then end up on PC as either PC ports or static recomps. But do be aware, you do not need a decompilation to do a static recomp, it's just one of the ways that you can get the games onto PC. But even if I am not the best at Smash Brothers, everyone always points that out when I talk about this. It is still a ton of fun, and I remember having a lot of fun back in the day. It was one of those things. I've always preferred 2D fighters, stuff like King of Fighters and Street Fighter Alpha, more than Smash, or at least I've gotten better at them. But to say that the fan community for these games and even the competitive scene absolutely loves it would be a massive understatement. These things are absolutely beloved, and outside of Nintendo being really weird about their tournaments lately, basically not letting people actually compete outside of sanctioned events, which just seems foolish, this thing still absolutely lives a massive life out there in the competitive community. Now, taking a look at the decompilation, as of today when I'm recording this, it is only 4.25% away from 100% decompiled, sitting at 95.75%. Now, I do make these videos ahead of time, so it is possible it's gone up a quarter of a percent or maybe a percent, and I'll definitely do a 100% decompiled video because you guys love to see those. But taking a look at the heat map here, at least what I call it, I don't know if it has an official name, every single function, every single character, every single moveset, and everything that makes up what Super Smash Bros. is sitting here in this heat map. And when you see a chunk of green, whether it's huge or tiny, that means that particular area has been 100% decompiled. When you see black, that means it has not been touched yet, and blue is somewhere between 1% and 99% when it comes to the decomp status. But you'll see here, so much has actually been taken care of, but if we go into one of the areas that is not 100% decompiled, you'll see we're just dealing with different particles and how they actually display on screen. So it's one of those things you could probably make some sort of PC port right now at 95.75%, you just may have a couple graphical glitches. But again, a game as big as this definitely is something that people are going to want to see a PC port for in the future once it hits 100% decompiled status. But I will talk about the fact that a PC port for Super Smash Bros. Is going to be quote-unquote harder than anything else out there. Maybe not down to the code, but in other ways, but we're going to save that for a minute or so. But just think of a universe, think of a future where you can just sit down at your PC and play Super Smash Bros. Here. And I'm sure people will be very quick to try to build an entire online component as well, so you can sit around and play with your friends locally, but then play online with a ton of people across the world. It's not an easy thing to do, but you know full well the Smash community would be motivated. And speaking of different mods and stuff like that, we have to talk about the fact that one of the questions I get very often is, would a decomp and PC port mean that Smash Remix would be playable? And the answer is honestly no, not at least at the start. Because Smash Remix is a ROM hack of the original Super Smash Bros., yes, it is still sharing basically all of the source code, but it has amended the ROM to do different unique things and add in new characters, movesets, and the like. So it would be a very good basis to bring something like Smash Remix over to PC, but it would require a lot of work. Now again, the Smash community is definitely motivated, so I could definitely foresee a situation where the Smash Remix team brings it over to a PC port when and if that's actually ready. Let's do a soundtrack sample just so you can adjust that information, but come back because I got a lot more to talk about on why this would be a hard port to achieve.
3, 2, 1, go!
Now just recently I talked about on the channel the PlayStation 2 PC port of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and I said that that was absolutely an incredible experience and felt every bit as good as what you would expect a Street Fighter 3 game to feel like. But I talked to a few people I know that play this game competitively, and they said it's like 98% of the way there in the feel, at least for this version of the game, but it is different than the arcade version, and some things weren't 100% perfect. Now the reality of the situation is I would absolutely have no idea that was the case, as would you unless you're watching this and you're a competitive Street Fighter 3 Third Strike player. But as far as something like a potential PC port of Super Smash Bros. For the competitive scene out there and the people that really dial down on what the game can be, I am sure it would take a lot of revisions to get everything working 100% perfectly, because that is the thing about a recomp or PC port of a fighting game. There's so many different movements, there's so many different input windows on how to achieve those, and even things doing in the game that the developers never actually intended or thought of in the first place. So that is why something like a PC port of Smash Brothers would be an incredibly hard thing to 100% perfect. Now, I'm not saying it's not doable, I'm sure it is doable. I'm just saying, unlike stuff that we've seen recently in the recomp and PC port category for N64, dealing with a fighting game is way more difficult just because it has such precise movements and input windows. Take a look at something like Bomberman 64 that we recently got a recomp of. 10 out of 10 amazing, and I loved it. If there was some sort of issue where some sort of input was slightly one frame off, or it was doing like 99.99% of the 100% job it's supposed to be doing, you would have no idea, because Bomberman 64 is a pretty laid back game. Yes, it's challenging, yes, it's fun, and yes, it will give you some really fun and difficult areas, but it's not like a fighting game where you're worried about frame perfect inputs to be able to make sure you're able to execute everything with that particular character you've learned. That's what I mean when I say a potential PC port would be way more difficult than other things. It's just down to the fact of how fighting games work. And again, I would love to see something like Remix actually come into a potential PC port, but again, I am just musing about potentials here. A decompilation project does not mean you're going to see a PC port. We've seen it on the N64 side of things, where Paper Mario's been decompiled for years now, and there's been no movement on a port whatsoever. But I really do feel like in my gut that once this thing hits 100% decompiled status, you are going to see people working on a port very quickly. And even though I have no information about it, I feel like there's probably people out there already working at least on the bare bones sort of structure of a PC port, because 95% decompiled is a perfectly fine place to kind of get a start with this stuff, because you don't necessarily need a 100% decomp status to start a PC port, because you've seen on other projects like Fatal Frame, a PC port working on like a 60% decompiled build. One more soundtrack sample so you can kind of think about all the difficulties of a fighting game PC port, and I'll be right back. So yeah, the fact that Super Smash Bros. Is so close to Decompiled is absolutely massive, not only for decomp projects in general, but for the Smash community in general, because you are going to see one day in the future a port that has a ton of mods to it, online support, maybe even Smash Remix built in, and I think I'm talking about years here, not months, because again, nothing is guaranteed, so don't ask me down below when the decomp is going to be done or when we might be playing a port. I know as much as you do, which is to say any answer I give you would be absolutely a guess. You will just be pleasantly surprised to hear in a video form here when it's been 100% decompiled, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised to hear one day that a PC port is in the works and then releases. But decomps, recomps, and PC ports are definitely going to keep heating up, and I feel like by 2030 we're probably going to have a couple hundred of these things to play with, and that is definitely an amazing thing, and I can't wait to see what comes next. But trust me, the next time there is a major development, I'll definitely talk about it on the channel. Leave me any questions or comments down below, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.